That essence of it is done.
And to get into maybe a little of the anti-patterns, if we look at Scrum, one of the ones that I see again and again and again is this decomposition, this splitting of large things into small things and small things that are really sprint ready, sprint sized, is not doing refinement, because that's a very key practice. And unlike most of the other events in Scrum, which have a specific time frame they occur, right? You hold a daily every day. You start the sprint with sprint planning. You end the sprint with the review and the retrospective. Refinement's more of a you should be doing it kind of thing. And so I generally tell teams 1 hour twice a week forever.
And I have a similar advice. I don't say forever though. I say your goal is to maintain 2 to 3 sprints worth of backlog. If you need to have more time to get 2 to 3 sprints worth of ready level stories that fit, fine. If you could get if you're there, cut yourself off, move on. Don't try to go to sprint number 6 getting stuff
Yeah.
ready because you're going to be too hard. So I do look. I think Jenny sounds like she does that too. But let's go ahead and let's go back and start with some of the fundamentals here of breaking down. And one of the fundamentals of breaking stories down is having some kind of fit rule. That is, you have to have some rule that you've come up with as a team that says, here is our sort of thumbs, like, looking at it and say, do we think this fits in our sprint? And when we say fit, I usually try to put the word easily fit. Not like, ooh, can we barely cram it in kind of fit, but we look at it and go, yeah, this should easily be able to be finished within a sprint if that was the only thing we were doing.
Right. Yeah, and so I when I said forever, I guess what I meant was don't do it one sprint and then stop.
Oh, yeah.
But like I usually say 1.5 to 2 sprints ahead of you, right? And so if you can do that in 3 refinement sessions, you cancel your 4th one. If you find that you're, 2 in and you're not even close, add another one or add another hour to the one that you have. Make sure you spend enough time. And similarly, I usually give people kind of 2 rules of thumb. This assumes you're story pointing. If you're story pointing, there's a story point size where it's too big to estimate. We can't estimate it if it's a 21 or bigger. We just don't know what it is. We have to break that down, or a 34 or bigger. There's some size where it's just too unknown to even be thinking about. And then there's some other size that's small enough to fit into your sprint, right? It might be a 3, it might be a 5, it might be an 8. But as Earl was saying, easily fit, right? You can do 6 of these all day, no problem, right? It's not like, oh, we could do one of these and then maybe one other. You need to be able to do a set of these pretty easily inside your sprint boundary.
And if you're pointing, Jenny's rule is pretty good. If you're not pointing it, because I do something a little different than Jenny, I tell them not to bother to point until after you've made the fit decision. No, he's trying to assign points to something bigger than 21 because it's going to be that we got to break it apart anyhow. So once you've decided it fits, and I come up with a fit rule that usually is some level of capacity of the team. The rule I use is usually 50% of something, either 50% of the entire capacity, like, oh, we have 400 theoretical hours. So nothing bigger than we look and say, yeah, this shouldn't take 200 hours or less of the team's time to take it from its current state to done. Or if you're doing more individual work, 50% capacity of an individual. If I think I can get that done in half the sprint time, then it easily fits. And we don't have to be exact, right? You're just like going, yeah, it sounds like it's around about there. And then it's worth going, then we'll go in and do the more heavier pointing process afterwards.
And Earl and I think are somewhat different there. I'd be biasing towards a bit smaller. Mine's more like a quarter of a sprint or less, just because I think most people, if they try to do half, they're going to find out it's bigger than they thought. But ultimately, I think any rule that you use that works for you is the right way to go, right? Come up with some way of making sure that you have things. Ultimately, for me, the outcome is what I care about. Are you able to successfully make and meet your sprint commitments? If you're not, then you probably need to change your rule of
Your
thumb.
rule, yeah.
Yeah.
and that's just it, right? This is where the retrospective process starts serving you well. Is our rule actually working for us, or do we need to adjust it? Are we making them too small? We're getting with 45 stories, and they're all like taking a day. It's like, well, okay, we went way too small, or is it going bigger? So, first step is to come up with some sort of rule that says too big or not too big. But that's generally the easy part.
Right.
Then it says, we think it's too big. We need to break it down. And and some are easier than others to do this with. But what do you do when it's too big? And that's what we're here.